You ever felt tired after being around certain people? Or that you're kind of dizzy or you can't think straight when you're around these people, or you can feel them around you and in your presence? It's very likely that your energy is being harvested. And these people will silently watch you just to try to watch your mannerisms and keep track of everything that you do. They watch you silently and keep track of everything that you do so that they can either pocket watch or they can see how you're moving, why you're moving that way, especially if you're mysterious. And you may be intimidating, even though you're not trying to be. They're intimidated, but you're not intimidating. Then they're going to watch you silently, and they're going to try to figure you out and see what you're about and who you are and why you are the way that you are. And you might just be doing your work. Just like, for example, the gym is a obvious example of this, where you're at the gym, you're working hard, you're just in the zone doing your thing, and then suddenly you start to feel eyes watching you. And you can feel that these are monitoring spirits. Or they're even shadow beings watching through these people, because sometimes there are people out there that are very narcissistic. And even though they may not be diagnosed as narcissists, they might be narcissists. And usually, in my experience, whenever anybody is actually a narcissist, usually that's a shadow being. Now, anybody that doesn't know what a shadow being is, it's when you feel as though you're constantly in despair around these people, and that you are not ever going to see light at the end of the tunnel. That might be a shadow being that's controlling certain parts of these people. And you've got to be careful with that. You've got to be mindful of that. Because if this person does have a shadow being in them, and you'll know if you're dealing with a shadow being, okay? Because the way that I see it is, maybe I ought to do like a whole video on the hierarchies of demons. Because although I don't know the technical terms for a lot of these things, I've created and curated my own names for them. And so maybe I've named things that other people have named, where they are actually the same thing perhaps, but just different names or different semantics when it comes to these things. And semantics are important, don't get me wrong, semantics are very important, but you have to be very careful with these kinds of people, because if they have demonic influence in them, which most people do, if they have demonic influence in them, the chances that they're going to do everything that they can to disrupt your peace and steal your joy is exponentially high, even if they don't mean to. Even if they're not meaning to steal your joy or take your peace, they're going to just do it, because the person that is inhabiting the body of the spirit, that shadow being, let's say, it's going to do everything that they can to take the light from you. Okay, they literally feed and siphon off of the energy of other people. That's what narcissists are. Have you ever noticed that the narcissist's aura is very, at first it feels grounding. You feel very centered around them. But then you slowly realize that it's not actually centered. It's actually just they're their own world and their own black force, black hole vortex that sucks you in, and you think that you're centered around this person until time comes by and passes by, and you're thinking to yourself, holy moly, I don't even know what just happened. Yeah, that's a narcissist. If you can't keep track of anything that they're doing, yeah, that's probably a narcissist. Or they have a lot of trauma and problems that they have not yet healed. Okay, and it's important to know this because there's a lot of codependence and perhaps even histrionics or BPDs that are also in this mix where even though they make up a small percentage of the population, technically speaking, I think a lot of them have this kind of influence. And for a person to truly have like a histrionic personality disorder or a BPD, borderline personality disorder, there has to be a certain amount of demons that are in them. I genuinely believe that psychological and spiritual problems go hand in hand. That's one of the reasons why it's important to understand the science of psychology, but also apply it spiritually to your own life. And so these people that are watching you, they are likely filled with demons, and they likely see that your light is shining. Because as I mentioned in a video last week about how when you're celibate, you're going to be basically like a celebrity in the spiritual domain. That's exactly what's happening. The demons see your spirit. The demons see that. And there's this weird thing that's happening biologically within them because there's subconscious programming that ensures certain things are going to happen. Like, for example, when it comes to female attraction for a man, of course, the man's going to be more attractive the more women that are attracted to him. And he's going to be developing this mass, this density of female attraction, which ultimately he treats himself, and he's not even trying to treat himself. He just is a product of gravity where women will just gravitate to him. It just happens. And any man that understands what I'm saying here, well, it basically comes down to, if you understand what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying. And if you don't, then you don't. And hopefully you'll get there someday. But I think that there's a lot of people that misassociate the pains of being watched all the time. It's not really something you need to be schizophrenic about. Okay, it's not really something that you need to be troubled with or have anxiety about unless you become like a targeted individual. And in order to be a targeted individual, of course, there's going to be a little bit of criteria to be set up about that, but overall, the probability of you seeing the truth about situations, if you are still healing from trauma, is going to be not so good. You're not going to see things clearly. And so you have to know the difference between being in trauma and being in discernment, okay? Because a lot of people that are godly or that are striving to heal from these narcissistic people and relationships or these toxic people in their life, a lot of the times they don't know the difference between discernment and trauma-based conditioning. And so in trauma-based conditioning, they've allowed their nervous system to attack itself. And so they think that when people are watching them, there's something weird and conspiratorial happening behind the scenes. Now, don't get me wrong, that there can be that kind of stuff that happens. And I've seen it in my own life. I've seen very strange things. When I speak the truth, there's weird things that happen, okay? The lights will flicker, the internet goes freaky. People will cut down trees randomly with the power line and mess with the power line. That literally happened like 2 months ago after speaking about Charlie Kirk. It was super strange. And still don't even know exactly what happened. But there was just like little weird things that happen. You'll hear, you're going to see random people pop up in your life. Anybody that's been watching my videos for a long time knows that when I do videos outside and I'm speaking a lot of heavy truth, all of a sudden the noise campaigns start. And so all of these weird random noises start to happen. And it's like, golly, Or sometimes, like even right now, I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but there are certain things like happening next door that are a bit louder, okay? So it's like, yes, the spiritual domain is real, but if you get too lost in the spiritual domain, like if you stay in your upper chakras, let's say, you're not going to be able to ground yourself in your lower chakras. And I use those two terms loosely, okay? I use those terms loosely because to use those terms does not necessarily mean that I'm an Easterner, okay, or that I am advocating for this kind of mindset. I'm simply saying that this is a tool to understand the mechanisms of, and to put in a framework. It's not a matter of interpretation, it's a framework that you can associate with to just allow things to be more easily understood. Okay? And so when you have this framework, it allows you to be grounded in a sense of, at least I have a framework to work with. Because a lot of the times I think that people suffer with spiritual problems to the degree in which it is a spiritual problem that is very deep within them. They suffer this because they don't have the ability to ground themselves in Christ. They don't have the ability to ground themselves in the truth, the way, and the life. So they see all these spiritual things, but they don't have the vessel in the body to really digest these things. And so you can understand a lot of things, but can you actually move forward with that knowledge? Can you move forward with that wisdom? Okay, I was even talking about this with someone earlier today. And this is something that even myself, I have to challenge myself with. Okay, just because I know certain things about whatever, does that mean that I am actually applying that knowledge? Because to me, if you don't apply knowledge, and this is something else I said, was if you have knowledge but you're not applying it, it's like a fat guy telling you how to be a bodybuilder. There's no way that I would ever listen really to that fat guy talk about how to be a bodybuilder. I'm going to listen to the bodybuilder because he knows what he's actually, like, he has the lived experience of it. Okay, it's like these physical trainers that you'll see at the gym. Okay, I'm not the most fit guy in the world, but I'm more fit than some of these physical trainers. And so to see these people go to these physical trainers with a beer belly, it just is laughable to me. So there has to be some kind of form of implementation. And the spiritual ego per se, because people can be like, oh yeah, I'm so spiritual. Like that can be a side effect dealing with people that are staring at you. When you're starting to level up and people are watching you, the ego can get involved. And it's important to have a healthy ego, don't get me wrong, because I think trying to dissolve the ego is one of the worst things as far as the psyop goes to happen in the last 20, 25 years. And the reason being is because they want you to be identityless. They want your identity to be in an identity. They don't want your identity to actually be grounded in who you are and what you believe in and what you aspire to and your principles and your domains and all these things. They want you to think that you are out there, not you're on the outside looking in, not on the inside looking out. That's what they want. They want you to be on the outside looking in. They don't want you to think that you're on the inside looking out, because then you're actually going to realize that God is within you and you don't need outside. Now, of course, you do. This is where the paradox comes into play, because people, especially in the spiritual domain, a lot of these Christian influencers and all this stuff, they talk a lot of good stuff. They do. And it's really positive on the outside. On the outside, it's really positive. But do they actually practice these things? Are they actually living this? Living these things is a completely different ballgame. So that's one of the reasons why you've got to be very mindful not to let your ego be too inflated when people are watching you. Okay, because if you are... Now, this is not to say that you ought not to be dominant in who you are as a man if you're watching this specifically, but don't get on your high horse about it. Take it for what it is, recognize it for what it is and why it's happening spiritually, and then progress forward as necessary. It really is that simple. And people make things far more complex than they need to be because they don't understand the non-physical entities that are within these people, they are still thinking only about themselves in these kinds of situations. They're not thinking about what's actually happening. Remember, the inside looking out. Go from the inside looking out, because you'll recognize that these are spirits within these people that are trying to influence, whether they're monitoring spirits or shadow beings or whatever the case is. You have to be careful. You have to be mindful. So lay out the map of the spiritual domain in your own mind and recognize that there are people that are controlled by demons incrementally. And they're not always acting because they want to act that way. They're acting in such a way that they are because they're being influenced to, because they've given their soul, parts of it, to demons and to the devil. It's really just that simple. And a lot of people might hear that and be like, well, that's not practical or grounded in reality. It's like, actually, that's the realest thing you could be. That's actually the realest way to put it. So I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. I hope that you all stay blessed. Peace. Until next time.